ready?
Yeah, let's do this. Hello, everybody. Bree Milani here with Sky Insurance Brokers, and we are on the Greatness Podcast today, and we have an amazing guest. Her name is Ashley Huegi. She works for Lone Pal, and she and I have worked together for quite a few years now, and she's somebody in the industry that I really look up to, and she's done an amazing job, navigating this industry, because we all know it can be crazy.
You're so sweet. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, well, I'm happy you're here, and I know you have a very busy life and a very busy schedule with almost 2 babies, one baby and one on the way.
Yes.
So congratulations. She's due with her
you.
second baby boy. He'll be here in July.
Yes,
so.
that's right. Summer baby this time.
Ooh, I have one of those, and I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah, I know I'm in for a treat.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think those last few weeks I was just like in a pool.
Yeah, totally.
Keep it nice and cool.
I'll be sure to stock up on those.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, why don't we get into it a little bit? Tell us, how you got in the industry. I know you have your husband and your almost 2 babies, and let's hear a little bit about your life and how you got in this industry.
Yeah, so how I got into this industry is probably different than most, and I was giggling with you earlier today about this, but I really believe that the industry happened for me and not to me. I used to say that it happened to me, but there's certain events in life that have happened that have made me kind of rethink that. Now I really feel like God has kind of put me in this place for a reason. But I actually initially got recruited. Actually just celebrated my 8th year anniversary with Lone Pal.
So maybe I've known you longer than that.
Yes, it could be. I'm not even sure. But I actually got recruited. I was working at a gym, 24-hour fitness. I was finishing my, I had just finished my bachelor's, and I was deciding to go get my master's. And I just knew that it wasn't a long-term career, but it was allowing me to go to school and finish and work and still be able to take care of some things that I needed to take care of. But I got recruited, and I started in the call center, which, if you know me, that was the worst idea ever.
Yeah, I cannot imagine you sitting in a call center.
Yeah, I was pinned to a desk, which I'm just a very social person, and I need to be able to get up, walk around. And, we were stuck with these headsets on, and we're just taking calls at the mercy of the dialer, which I'm really grateful for, because it actually did teach me a lot about myself, and also in this industry how to develop thick skin, which I think is really necessary.
That's half the battle in this industry.
Yes, and it took me a while to learn that, and I probably still am learning that in some cases, but I'm very grateful for that. So I've done a little bit of everything at Lone Pal. We were Paramount Equity, then we became Paramount Partners Group, and I was in charge of marketing and business development at that time, so I got to go through the whole rebranding experience, which was really cool, and I'm really grateful for that, because I do feel very proud about what we stand for. And, being able to kind of chaperone or champion that was a cool experience.
And I think that's when I met you, when you were doing marketing. And I remember, because was doing marketing, and I remember that's so cool. Yeah, you guys were going through a full name change, and everybody knew Paramount. Everybody knew that name. And so to come out and have a new name, it was kind of like a fresh start.
Yeah.
It was good. So, and it's interesting. So you started in marketing, which obviously suited your personality well. How did you get to doing loans?
Yeah, I think because it's kind of a selfish reason why, really. I was sitting coaching agents and these loan officers on all these different strategies and kind of how to grow their business. And I was like, I'm telling these people what to do. I'm going to go out there and do it myself so that I understand what it's like on the other end. And I feel like I kind of have a good grasp being around it. And business development, that had already allowed me to create a lot of the relationships that I still have today, like with you.
Yeah.
And so I just thought, what? Screw it.
I'm doing it.
I'm going to go out and do it. And at that time, I was already married to my husband, and I knew that I wanted a family one day, and that just allowed me a little bit more flexibility selfishly that I wanted.
Well, yeah, and I think that's fair. I mean, when you're in sales, you do get that flexibility. You're kind of on your own schedule. And I know what's a little bit unique to you is that you've been working from home since pre-pandemic with your son, who's now 3.
Yes.
And I know for me personally, that's kind of new territory for me.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people who are listening, that might be something you could shed some light on, because I said to you today, it's like I have a sitter when I work from home.
Right.
So my mom or whoever is helping me with the kids, it's like I can actually get work done.
Yeah.
Whereas when I'm alone with my kids and trying to work from home, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate that? Because I remember you've even brought your son to some meetings, and he's so well behaved.
And gosh. Well, he's not always like that. Let me just be honest.
Good.
He has his moments.
Okay, good. Because I'm like, oh gosh.
Yeah. As he's gotten a little bit older, it's gotten both easier and more challenging because he's aware of more. So he understands, okay, mommy's on the phone. I have to be quiet right now. But at the same time, when he needs his attention, it's like there's nothing else. Yeah. That it's just I need to stop what I'm doing and make sure I'm building Legos or playing board game, which we do a lot of those throughout the day.
That's awesome.
But yeah, it was just something I was really passionate about. And at that point, I had just transitioned back into loans, and I had told work, hey, if you want me to come back, I'm going to work from home. And I was grateful that they allowed me the flexibility to do that. But definitely the first 2 years, first year and a half was very challenging. I cried a lot, which I'm not a major crier usually, but I'm sure the postpartum hormones didn't help me either. But it was just a learning curve for sure, trying to figure out how to balance both, because it was really important for me to take care of him. But at the same time, I had responsibilities and people that were depending on me. And so that challenge is very hard, and it still is hard, but it's gotten easier. And the thing that I've learned, and I had Kelly Resendez as an amazing mentor, and just mindset is the most important thing. Just being able to understand, okay, I can't be perfect at everything.
Right.
And scheduling breaks throughout the day too. So I kind of it's a rough, loose schedule, time block throughout the day. I don't stick to it straight because I have a toddler.
Well, and if somebody calls, you're like, well, okay, I'm going to have to pick up that call.
Exactly.
Answer those questions.
Exactly. But mindset and having somewhat of a rigid / flexible schedule throughout the day is really, really helpful.
Yeah. And that's something I think a lot of parents now have learned with the pandemic of how to do that. Just that exactly, is being flexible.
Yes.
And I think people are more understanding now. If I take a phone call and my child's in the background, mommy's saying something, people are like, oh, is that your daughter?
It makes you more real. And I'm really grateful for that. Before I used to kind of have to explain that to people on the phone. Hey, sorry, I am working from home today. I've got my little one in the background, which I still kind of lead with that, but they love it.
Yeah.
And I can hear a lot of the families I help, which I'm sure we'll talk about too, are younger families, and they have little ones at home.
Yep.
And so it's just like a bonding experience that kind of happens.
It makes you real. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all human. We're all figuring out and navigating our new world. And because I know, for us, for my family personally, it was a balance of, okay, my husband he goes to work every day. And I do as well. But how do we navigate it to where maybe he can work from home a little bit, I can work from home.
Right.
Because, we run into challenges every day where, oh gosh, somebody that you're close to tests positive for COVID. Now what do you do?
Right.
So it's kind of that balance and that understanding that these clients that you're working with have. And I know, you and I work together a lot, and you work with a lot of buyers up in high fire areas.
Yes.
And I know quite a few of your buyers that we've worked with tend to be younger families.
Yeah.
And that's amazing, because of course they're going to be understanding. So why don't you shed some light? I mean, obviously we know in our industry with insurance about high fire and the insurance and all of that good stuff. But what do you guys see in your industry as far as, is it harder to get a loan? Is it any different, or is the insurance kind of the main problem, I should say?
There's a couple things. It's been really interesting. Like I said, I've been in the mortgage industry 8 years, so I've had enough time to kind of see different changes in the market, and nothing like what we experienced the last 12. It's been 12 months, I think now.
It has officially,
But things are always evolving. Change is constant, and so you just kind of learn to go with it. But I would say there, a couple things. It's still not hard to get a loan. You still 12 now compared to 12 months ago, the parameters are still the same, minus, a couple things. For self-employed borrowers, it is more challenging. There's more guidelines and requirements now, more documentation that's needed, additional bank statements. P&Ls, things like that. Those were standard before, but it's just we need more of them. And
which isn't a bad thing.
yeah, it's not a bad thing. So I will say for self-employed borrowers, it can be more challenging, but we still get those loans done. It's just a little bit more legwork up front for our buyers and for us to be able to make sure that they can qualify. But yeah, high fire up in our area, because that's where I am, up in the foothills, can definitely be a challenge. And so one thing that I always do, especially with all of the agents that I work with up there, is we request a quote, which is where you get me. Adam hears from me all the time. But yeah, we request a quote prior to getting into contract. That's just because we want to make sure that the higher premium still allows them to be able to qualify. It doesn't change their debt to income ratio. And they have the additional funds saved for the closing costs that would require that premium. And a lot of times, and I know you're going to be talking with Taylor later today.
Yes.
But one thing that her and I do is we kind of make this pretty little packet for the sellers, and it's all in the buyer package. And usually the listing agent's really impressed that we already have a quote.
Oh,
and one thing that's different too that I've learned, it's important to request a quote that's specific to the buyers, because a lot of agents say, oh, I already have a quote. I'm like, yeah, that's great that you have a quote, but is it for new business? Because what I've learned from Adam is new business and old business are completely different.
You get sometimes a discount.
Yeah.
Every penny counts with that.
Yeah. So just making sure that we request a quote up front prior to submitting an offer. That way both the buyer and the seller feel 100% confident going into it.
And I wish everybody would do that. And I know it's not realistic, because the hard part is that you live in that area.
Right.
You understand the climate up there. You understand it's different from Roseville and Sacramento.
Totally.
It's when we have loan officers who, and it's not their fault, it's just they're used to working with $800 a year quotes for insurance, and you're like, yeah, right.
I know.
And so it's tough, because it's hard for us to have to break that news, like, yeah, it's going to be $3,000, and they're like, I only budgeted for $800 a year, and we're like,
or $9,400.
Oh yeah, we've seen some of those.
Yeah.
I think we have one that's like $22,000. I mean,
granted,
it's
goodness.
like a multi-million dollar home in the middle of nowhere. But it's so important, because, you're setting your buyer up for success.
Totally.
Really, because if you go in without a quote and they get a quote and it's, they're all excited, they've got their furniture picked out, woo, we're like going to move into this new house.
Right.
Oh no, we're not.
Sorry.
We can't afford that insurance.
Totally.
Happens almost daily, and it's unfortunate because it's really, you're breaking that person's heart because they had their heart set on that.
I know. That's why we do it up front, even before we're in underwriting and everything like that. That way we don't have to pull a rug out. Knock on wood. Never had to do it.
Hasn't happened yet.
No, I don't plan on doing it.
But you prepare your buyers to make sure they understand that
the process,
and that this is an issue we run into. The things we see sometimes are maybe Bay Area buyers or buyers that are unfamiliar with the area. They're like, they don't know any different.
Right.
So they're going in and they're like, what? That's so expensive. And we're like, what? That's actually a pretty good deal.
Exactly. And in this market right now, where you have probably a little over 33%, I'll have to check the data again, but it used to be about 33% of the traffic of the buyers that are coming up to this area are Bay Area. And that's why it's so important to work with a local lender. And that's what I always stress. At the end of the day, the interest rate isn't the only thing that's important. It's the lender, their operations team, how well they know the area, because of those things that we talked about just now. I've gotten clients from other lenders that just didn't understand how the California Fair Plan works. And one, they don't qualify, or two, they're short to close at the end of it. And then they can't get keys at the very end. And we do not want that to happen.
And it is so important, local on all aspects.
Yes.
I mean, a local insurance agent,
Totally.
a local mortgage company, a local
realtor,
real estate agent. Because at the end of the day, especially in these areas, I mean, it's no longer anybody can sell a house anywhere or buy a house anywhere.
Yeah.
And I mean, our market right now, I know in Placer County, Roseville, Rockland, all these areas, we're getting 30, 40 offers on every single house.
I know.
Do you find that's the same up in the foothill areas?
I wouldn't say it's 30 to 40 over, but definitely it's at least 10 multiple offers over asking. And so really, educating the buyer on that and setting your buyer up for success. And one thing that I've learned, because when it first started happening, I mean, we saw low inventory last year, but not like this year. And now there's all these other buyers out there that are trying to enter the market and competing with Bay Area cash offers. And cash is not always better.
Right.
Shorter contingencies aren't always better. And so really understanding the seller. What does the seller want? I learned this mistake hard the first time, because myself and the agent just didn't know. I'm used to slapping a 21-day close on there thinking, oh, quick close, let's get it done.
Right.
That was not the buyer's intention at all. They were planning on, or excuse me, the seller's intention. The seller needed time to find a new
like
house.
a rent back.
Yes, and we're seeing rent backs on almost everything right now. And so I learned that one really quickly. And so now I educate, the buyer, and I educate the agent, like, let's probe, let's find out, let's call the listing agent. Let's find out the seller's motivation. Do they need a quick close? Do they need shorter contingencies? Do they care about waived contingencies, things like that? We had a situation actually, because again, everything is going multiple offers over asking, but we had a unique situation. It wasn't me personally, but it was another loan officer in our office, and he had a VA client, and the listing agent told the buyer's agent, hey, this is a VA, our seller's a vet too. And so the buyer wrote this nice little letter, and I don't remember how many offers were over asking, but he and the seller wanted to give the home to the other veteran. And took a $35,000 price reduction.
I just got chills.
So it's there's ways to get in, and it's finding a way to tailor it to the seller specifically. And that's where we're finding success getting offers accepted right now. So buyers, hang in there.
I know,
there's a way.
It's brutal. Nick and I, we love our house. We're not moving, but we just went and looked at this house a few weeks ago, or probably about a few months ago at this point. But we were looking, and it had an in-law quarters. We're like, oh my gosh, my mom could move in. We had all these wild ideas. And then the listing agent was like, the sellers, they want to rent back for a couple months. We're like, oh my gosh, this could be perfect.
Right.
They had 13 offers.
Isn't that crazy?
We were like, oh, okay, our house isn't even on the market. We weren't really that serious, but it was just kind of one of those things that, for me, I'm in the industry, and I wasn't even aware that that's how wild it was.
And I knew it, and my husband and I went and looked at a new home too, and just out of curiosity, just to kind of plan, and they wouldn't even take contingent offers, and I had no idea.
And then what do? You sell your house, so you can't have a contingent offer, so you have to sell your house, and then it's hard for these buyers, like, where do we go?
Right.
That's where the rent back comes into play.
Exactly.
And that's interesting, because, even a couple years ago, rent back, and so that wasn't
not
really
even
a thing.
No.
Yeah, people were just moving and doing what they had to do.
We were seeing seller credits, and buyers still think that that's out there. And granted, there are special circumstances, and I've had that happen over the last 12 months where the seller was actually able to give a credit for the buyers for the closing costs, but that is not normal. And so just educating the buyers up front, like what we talked about, just setting them up for success, telling them what the process looks like, educating them on the current market, just makes everybody feel better when we're transparent.
Yeah. And I think, that kind of leads into interest rates now, which are amazing, even though people are like, they've gone up. But it's like, okay, we're still looking at record lows of interest rates.
Totally.
Because I think right now buyers probably feel defeated. They're like, I put in all these offers. I can't get my offer accepted. But we also have to look at the bright side that their interest rates are so low. Even when we bought our house 3 years ago, they're over 1.5% less than what we got on our house. So looking at that, do you think that's something that that's gonna maintain, or what do you expecting?
So it's funny because no, I wish I had the crystal ball. I'd be a wealthy woman right now. Running
what are we all?
a million podcasts. But it's interesting because I had posted a video on Instagram. I do a lot of stuff online.
You do amazing, by the way.
Oh, you're so sweet. It's a lot of work, but it's fun. I love it.
You do a great job of it. Check her out. What is it?
No, Home with Huegi.
That's what I thought. I didn't want to mess it up though.
No, you're good. So I did this video, and it's funny because I had done all this research, because the number one question I get asked are, what are rates going to do in 2021? And I totally get it. It's a valid question. So I started doing all this research because, like I said, I don't have a crystal ball. Yes, I'm in the industry, but I still was surprised a month ago when rates went up. But it was funny because I posted that video, and I think it was the next day rates went up.
Oh gosh. You're like, well, here we go.
Yeah, exactly. And I had said, rates may inch upward. We just don't know, what they're going to do and when they're going to do it. But rates are still relatively low. We saw a spike about a month ago. And we all were kind of shocked. And that's where buyers, I think, panicked for a second because, one, they're competing against all these multiple offers, and they're having to look at homes that are below what they actually qualify for, so that by the time they're done bidding, that they can still qualify. But then you had the rise of interest rates, and it may not seem like a huge deal because they're still low, but just a slight change can actually outprice someone. And so instead of a $400,000 $500,000 home, they're now having to look at something that's a little bit cheaper. We did kind of see them dip back down last week, but they are slightly inching up again. So it just depends. But what rates are going to do depends on a couple different factors. One, we're still dealing with a pandemic and its impact on the economy. We're dealing with a new president. So, certain policies and changes that are made could definitely impact rates. As well as inflation is another factor to look out for. And then the Federal Reserve's desire to keep rates low. So yes, we saw them inch upwards, then they kind of came back down. They're kind of inching again, but they're going to remain relatively stable, at least from what the Federal Reserve said that they were going to, keep them relatively low. So,
which is good, because I think, that encourages people to want to buy and sell, because I know, for me personally, we ended up refinancing. We have a great rate now, and it's like, I don't want to move because we have this awesome interest rate,
and a great payment that you're comfortable with, and not having to buy a more expensive house. Yeah, I totally get it.
And like for move-up buyers, I think that's a whole nother segment that we don't talk about a lot. We talk about those first-time home buyers, just people who are just trying to get their foot in the door. But for move-up buyers, it's nearly impossible because, well, maybe not impossible, but it's tough because, you have all this equity in your house, but you're like, where do I go? Because moving up, where do I move up to? Because it's also so much more expensive than it was. And so I've heard that a lot from people. It's like, I'm just staying put because I don't want to have to A, have a higher interest rate, and B, where do I go? And maybe that is causing this shortage that we're seeing.
It's interesting, and we'll have to see kind of what happens, because I know, my personal opinion, the stimulus that was passed doesn't, for those people that, I'm so grateful I was able to work and you were able to work through it, but that so many people weren't able to work. And so I think it's going to take a little bit of time to kind of see the effects of that, because the stimulus, I know, wasn't enough to pay a lot of people's mortgages, so it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens. But you're right, it is a different strategy for first-time home buyer versus a move-up buyer.
And I think it's, it's all about what you need in that moment.
Totally.
Now, do you deal with at all, or do you see what's going to happen with like the mortgage forbearance that they've done? Like, do you feel that that's going to be what we're going to see in the next year or two, the effects of that?
Well, actually, we already kind of saw the impacts of mortgage forbearance. I would say maybe 6 months ago. And, the banks and the servicers didn't do a very good job. Can I say that on here?
I think so. Hopefully they're not listening.
They didn't do a very good job about educating the homeowner when they called in. A lot of homeowners heard about it and they just assumed, oh, this is awesome. This is going to be able to provide me some relief. And so they just called in and got it taken care of. And for those that actually did need the relief, I totally understand. And it was a smart choice. But what the creditors and the banks and the servicers didn't do was let them know that this is a derogatory event on their credit. And so what we had happen, especially when people were trying to refinance in the fall, with the amazing rates, is you had people that were in forbearance, and unfortunately we can't fund a loan. No, they have to be out of forbearance and they have to, have been paid up. And in some cases, I had clients of mine didn't even know they were in forbearance. They simply called in to inquire about forbearance, not knowing that the servicer put them in a forbearance.
Oh my gosh.
And so it was very heartbreaking. So I think we kind of learned our lessons through that, and I try to educate people on that so that doesn't continue to happen. But
because I know that was a concern, and what I saw some chatter on Facebook and within our industry. Just hopefully that doesn't affect our industry, but it sounds like at least they got a handle on it.
It doesn't seem like an issue anymore, because I think most people that were in forbearance are probably now out of it, because I feel like it was maybe only a temporary thing. And of course in November, I think it was November, we kind of started to see things open back up, and so people were able to return back to work. And so I don't know, but we definitely already saw the impacts of it, I would say, in the fall.
Interesting. I didn't hear about that. So that's good to know, just to, hopefully they learn from that and people are, making
aware
better,
of it.
Making better decisions and more aware of it. Although it sounds like some of the decisions they didn't even make. It just kind of happened.
It's really, really unfortunate.
That is unfortunate. Well, I really appreciate you coming on here. I know
Yeah.
we kind of went through a lot, but I guess we'll kind of end with just, well, first off, thank you for coming on,
Thanks for having me.
taking time out of your day. I know you're so
Yeah.
busy, but
Oh, this
give
was
us
fun.
your information on like how people can contact you. I know you're a
Yeah.
great source, and you and I being millennials, it's good to have
Yes.
some young bucks in the
Yes.
industry. So why don't
Yes.
you give your information, your email address, phone number, best way
Yeah.
to get a hold of you.
Yeah, so the best way to actually get a hold of me is just to go straight to the website. It's homewithhuegi.com. And there's a contact form on there. It's connected to my Instagram. There's a blog on there. There's videos on there. So you can basically say anything and everything about me.
And
Well, not everything.
and it's Heugi, right?
Huegi.
Oh, shoot.
No, it's okay. It's a rough one. It's a rough one.
Okay, at least I've said it right all these
You
years.
did. You. Most people get it wrong. So
Well,
props.
I even before I'm like, I said it right? I've known you all this time. I
Yeah.
think I said your last name right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, and we're so excited for your new addition.
Oh,
Another
thank you.
little boy,
I'll still be
so-
working. So people out there, don't take this as a sign that I'm not working. I have an
Yes.
awesome team.
You do. You really do.
Oh, I can't even take credit for half of the stuff that we do. It's really our team that
I know
backs us
our
up.
office works with quite a few people on your team,
Yeah,
and
they're awesome.
They're all amazing.
Yeah,
so I
it's
know
the
you got
best
a good
place to work.
support.
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure. So if you need me, I'm still here.
She's still here. She's still working. Well, thank you again.
Yes.
And yes, if you guys need anything from her, you know where to find her.
Yes, thank you so much,
Yes.
Bree.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you guys later.